Brilliant. Welcome to session number 2 for UDL Leadership. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. We're going to jump right in. And like I said, I know we have a few people that are going to be floating in here as we go, but we will jump in and get started. So welcome, everybody. First thing we're going to do is a quick learner survey. So we're going to pop a link in the chat for you. Please take a minute and respond to the survey, please. You should see that in your chat. I know we have some more people popping in. All right, so take a look at that learner survey, and I'm going to bring up the results here. Go ahead and take a minute, and we'll watch as we get some responses pop in. And we know it's really great for our learners when we do a check-in, and I know people have lots of different strategies for doing check-ins with students. We have entry tasks, we have entry surveys for students, and that's great to do in your PD as well. So as you're thinking about your PD and your coaching, how are you checking in on your learners? How are you giving them a chance to kind of share how they're coming to the session with you? So let's see, we'll wait till we get a couple of responses in here. And I know it's really strange in Zoom where depending on when you jump into the Zoom, you don't always see the updated chat links. It doesn't always go in there for you. So we are going to be putting those links in there quite a bit. We want to make sure everybody gets access to those. All right, let's see. Still waiting for responses. I've got a couple responses in there now. Got one. So questions I'm asking tonight, I'm just checking to see how are you doing tonight? How are you ready for learning tonight? So I have, I'm doing really well. So far 0, not a lot of super high energy. It's all good. A couple people are fine or ready to participate. Perfect. We'll Got 3 at that one, perfect. I'm curious if there was anything people were hoping we would discuss today. And so I see nothing specific, I'm not sure. This is my first session, so welcome, it's all good. Anything more you want to share? Excited to be here. Thank you for offering the class. Excellent. Thanks for jumping in. It's just always nice to kind of get a feel for how people are doing as they join the session. So thank you so much for participating in that. And like I said, this is a great thing to do in your PD sessions, great to do in your coaching. How are you checking in on your learners that are working with you? So let's jump right in. Thank you for people that were here last time and they gave me some feedback. I want to share with you the feedback that you shared with me. Feedback is one of my most favorite things. It's really important to use that during PD and with coaching. And here's what you guys shared. We shared that 100% felt that we met our goals of starting with some resources around PD, having a chance to do some collaboration. Things that people said that we should keep in the session, chances to reflect, actually having people share out and just making everybody have a turn to be called on. And remember, if I call on you, you can say pass, but giving everyone a chance to respond. People liked that. The pacing people felt was strong, organization, and resources. So we're going to keep all those pieces. There were a couple of change requests that people made. One was to repeat the links in chat as much as possible. And so we're going to do that. And I have Adam that's going to help me with those links and keep those going in chat for me. And then I had the request of if we have questions for you, is there any way you're going to use those to guide some of the resources you share? And I did pivot and do something different, and I'm going to share that with you tonight that was based on that request. And then also the request for some more concrete examples. So I've added that as well. So please fill out that feedback because this is your session and I can't make it a great session without your feedback. So thank you so much. So you'll see the changes in our session tonight. All right. So again, the goals for this course, we're exploring structures to support the development of PD plans with, of course, a focus on UDL and inclusion. We're also working on opportunities for you to engage in collaborative conversations with your peers. Okay, so those are those pieces that we have for our goals. All right, and goals for session 2, we're going to look back at stage 1 where it was just looking at your goals for PD, and we're going to get a chance to kind of wrap up that one. And then we're going to jump into stage 2, which is all about when and how to deliver PD. And so we're going to go through some resources around that. And then, of course, keep the collaborative conversations. You guys have a wealth of knowledge and information to share, and I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to hear from each other. Our outcomes, of course, we're going through these 4 stages. We are going through goals and barriers, finishing those tonight. We're going to be starting the stage 2, when and how, and then in our later sessions, we have 3 and 4 with content and sequence for inclusion, and then ideas to help you think about what's next, and really thinking about real change and transformation in your systems. All right, a quick norms reminder. We spent a few minutes last time talking about how we're best supported, and I wanted to take a minute. Whoops, I need to go back and actually use that link. And I love how Zoom puts that little tool right on top. So really quickly, I want to show you our norms that we looked at last time so we can do a quick review. And I'm also going to have a link added. I'm going to have Adam help me as well, but you'll have access to add more to the norms if you like. We're putting that in chat for you. But just a real quick reminder that we had some go things we wanted to have happen and stops, things we didn't want to have happen in our collaboration together. So just really quickly, a couple, and some of the ones with stars. We had the getting concrete examples to use was on there. Making sure that we're engaging each other and being engaged ourselves, staying on topic, being open-minded, being flexible, the use of timers, being responsive, help people in their collaboration. And then some things that people said did not help them were if there's a lack of an agenda, if there are no goals provided, if there's negativity, and if people are not able to reference materials. Those were some of their negatives. So if you could give me a thumbs up, are we still good with these norms? You have access if you want to add, put anything in there. You can use this link at any time. Perfect. See a lot of thumbs up. Thanks, Josh. Thumbs up. So we're going to keep those norms. But like I said, you have the link anytime you want to add or reflect on those, please go back. Perfect. All right. Again, remember, we have all of our resources for you. We have digital, and of course, you could print out a copy of the playbook that's on that website resource. We're going to make sure you have that link again. Putting all these things in that chat space for you again. And just remembering that you have this web resource. Bring this up really quickly to remind you, I have the slideshow for tonight. Well, this is the slide. This is from session 1. Sorry, I need to scroll down. Here's session 2. So our slideshow for tonight is on here, so you can go back and reference it. And then there are these resource pages that we're going to be looking at tonight. And then I also have an FAQ doc that we're going to look at. So all these resources that you have access to, remember this page is staying up and you have access to these at any time. So please make sure you are grabbing that web resource and you're making sure you have access to it. Oh, and then remembering that playbook is right there if you need to grab another copy of that. So we had someone that it's their first session tonight. So when we talk about the playbook, it's right here on this website, and I can grab a quick direct link to this too, just so you have it. This is the document that's kind of guiding where we're going and the things that we're doing. So please make sure you have access to this playbook resource. And if it helps you, make sure you make a hard copy, print that out so you can look at that later as well. Perfect. So those are all those resources. And I know that came up in our feedback that people wanted to make sure they had access to those later. So please grab all those pieces and make sure you've bookmarked those and have those in a good spot. All right. We ready to jump in? Deep breath. We get through all the goals and outcomes. Get a little sip of tea. So in our last session, and if you weren't with us, don't worry. We'll give you a little review on that. In our last session, we talked about stage 1 of thinking about coaching and creating professional learning for your for your peers, for your staff. And this, of course, is very focused on UDL and inclusion. And the first stage is really thinking about what are your goals for your PD and what are possible barriers that can come up. So we did some activities in our first session. We really thought about our personal goals. We thought about barriers that happen when we try PD with teachers. And there's a lot of different barriers that can come up. And we know with UDL, just like creating lessons for students, when we create PD, we follow the same UDL structure. So we try to think of our clear goals for our PD and think about barriers before our staff is going to come against them, right? Because if we can figure out ways to eliminate those barriers, we can support our learners, right? Whether it's our staff or our students, we can eliminate those barriers and give them every chance to meet those goals, right? And we know that's a huge focus with UDL and inclusion. So we talked about that a lot during our first session and gave you some work time and some time to reflect and discuss with the group what that means and how to kind of get those pieces together. Now, within looking at goals and barriers, we actually talked about our goals, right? We did a prior knowledge activity, and then there were all these learning pieces that you could look at, trying to think about barriers and thinking about connections and just making those next steps for yourself of just trying to solidify your goals for PD. Okay, and so tonight we're going to go through these three quickly, give you a chance to kind of have either a discussion or a little bit of work time on your own, because I want to make sure we can really talk and give everybody a chance to share some of their goals, their long-term, short-term goals they have for PD. It's really great for you to hear what other people in the group are considering. Okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to have a choice. You're going to get 15 minutes, and you can choose to either go through pages 4 through 9 in that playbook, and you can do that on your own. You can mute. You can set your own timer or just kind of keep the screen so you can see the timer up here. And you can just go through some pages and make some notes for yourself with the idea that you're going to share out with us when we come back. We're going to share what some of our goals are. Or you can stay and work as a group. You can stay with us, keep your mic on, and we'll actually go through these steps together. So totally up to you. Okay. But if you want to work on your own, make sure you turn your mic down so you don't have to listen to us all jabbering at you. But those are your choices. Okay. Any questions on what your choices are? Okay, and you can also turn your camera off if you're choosing not to, if you just want to work on your own and do a little reflection and hear yourself. Okay, all right, I'm going to start the timer. So you'll be able to see the time go there. So anybody that's like working on their own and just wants to kind of peek up. But I'm going to go ahead and ask you to kind of work through some of these with me, and we're going to look at some of these pieces and pages 4 through 9. And the first one is to kind of talk about some of the resources that you saw in there. The one that I really want to draw your attention to, and now I'm going to be, hold on, we're going to have to set, I'm going to have to set another timer because I'm going to be moving the screen around. I apologize, people that are not participating in that part. We'll just wave our hands at you. Hopefully you'll. All right. So what I want to show with you are some of the resources in that page. On page number 4, when you are thinking about making your goals and thinking about barriers with staff, things that can happen, one of my favorite resources is this one right here, this NOVAC, Planning Professional Development Using UDL as a Lens. Has anybody looked at that one and dug into this one? This one is super powerful. This is a great one. So make sure you take a look at this because it actually goes through, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. It actually goes through, just like with the UDL framework, it goes through the framework, but it pulls out things just for adult learners. And I know adult learners are very similar to children, but also very different, right? If you've ever gotten that chance to work with both age groups. But I love how it pulls out the barriers that will potentially come up for your learners, and then tells you what you need to do in practice. So in the engagement piece, it talks about making sure you have clear goals. Now we know that's important for um, every type of learning experience, right? But our adult learners are not going to give us a lot of kindness. They're not going to be very kind to us if we're not very clear on what we're doing, right? Mary Jo, have you seen that before, right? If we're not like super upfront with, hey, here's why you're here, here's what we're going to do, here's how this is connected to everything else. Our students, even our high schoolers, were kind of play along and not really hold our feet to the fire, but our adults will. So having clear goals for your PD, having it connected, having them know where you are in the sequence of learning, those adult learners will really push you on that, because in feedback they'll say, hey, this doesn't connect to my job. Hey, what's this from? Right? Is this just a one-off thing again? Is it flavor of the month? So, oh my gosh, this is such an important one to make sure you are super clear in your goals with them. Lacking relevance. How many times have you been to an adult PD and they say, oh, this has nothing to do with me? Oh, I already do this. Right? Uh, oh, I'm a PE teacher. This isn't for PE teachers, or fill in the blank, right, with whoever it is. Um, really setting that purpose with everyone of why they're there, having them also make personal goals for the learning, but making sure that relevance is not going to be a barrier, because that happens a lot with our adult learners. That is a big one. We also know right now there's a lot of stress. We have teachers that have gotten, right, they're up to here with the latest PD and all those pieces. So making sure you have norms, making sure you do learner check-ins with people, um, really responding to that stress and overwhelm piece for your adult learners is super huge. So I love that they give the UDL strategies, what this looks like in practice. So this is a great document to walk through these pieces. Um, Disinterested, negativity, right? Um, Distraction. This one is really powerful, and it goes through all the pieces. Then it even gets to representation, right? So just like with our students, it talks about how our adult learners are in different levels, right? Some of our learners won't have a lot of background knowledge. They won't feel like they have an entry point. So making sure that you really think about how to have entry for all of your staff members. And I have more resources when we get into the next stage and we start talking about content. I'm going to show you some of that stuff. But this is a great document for you to kind of take a peek and look through. Um, Also, as if you've already done some PD and you started to see some of these barriers come up, this is a great one to just reflect on as you're going to. So it's not just in pre-planning, it's as you're reflecting and looking at your feedback. What are people saying? Are they saying things like, doesn't fit for me? Then you can go into this document and look at some of the sections and see what the UDL strategy suggestion is. So this is a really great one. Participant voices they feel like their voices aren't heard. So these are just really powerful ones. Okay. Um, Anybody want to share barriers that they have experienced doing PD? What have you found doing PD with adult learners? Let's have some people share out.
That it's a waste of their time.
That is the biggest one I hear, isn't
Yeah.
it? I guess. And are they willing to dig in a little bit deeper? Are they giving any more details to that?
Just that like there's not enough time for planning or collaboration between grade levels, stuff like that. So
Um,
they
and,
have to sit through a PD.
and do you feel like it's usually because, is it with those one-off PDs where it's like it's a session that it doesn't feel connected? Do you think that's what's going on?
Yeah.
Because that's usually how we do PD, right? And that was traditionally in our district. We had oh, let's offer some sessions. Let's see if we can just give people a few choices. We'll do a couple things. But as you're thinking about your inclusionary practice or UDL, you really need to scaffold this in a way where there's a great sequence to it, right? And that definitely comes in when we look at stage two, we talk about the when and how, and we also in that third one talk about sequence and content. There are a lot of recommendations on how to even begin. And even if you started and you're trying to kind of pull some UDL or inclusion off and it just feels like it's kind of going flat, you can always stop and regroup. But there are definitely some really important sequence and relevance building, right? Because if it's not connected, you're totally right. They're not going to see a purpose. They're going to feel like it's just being done to them, right? You are so right. And that's one of the biggest ones with our adult learners that they'll bring up. What other barriers are people finding?
I can share if I experience this is Mary Jo, that the PD I've done, they're not willing to embrace the new way of thinking or the new curriculum or the research. So they're very, very stuck in their ways and they want to continue doing things the way they think is best. So it's really hard to change that mindset sometimes, even with research backing you. So that was some experience I had.
And that is so powerful. And my high school crew did that to me too. They're like, why are we even doing this? Everything is working fine. And so then I just stopped and I said, well, who is it working fine for? And who wants just fine? Right. And so we had a big discussion of, well, how is it working for students? Um, and it was just crickets, right? Like just, well, we don't know. We didn't have any feedback structures. They weren't asking students how any of the learning was doing for them. And then we looked at data, like what are we seeing? How are our standardized scores? How are our attendance rates? How are our D's and F lists, right? Um, and we had the come to Jesus meeting of we're obviously not meeting the needs of all of our students. We have very high absenteeism. We have lots of D's and F's, right? And of course we have some students that are doing wonderfully, right? But what about the students that aren't? And what about the students that are doing okay, but could be doing even better? So we had to get to the point where we have to do something different, right? And I know, and we had the big battle of I don't have time. I don't have time to do anything different, right? But it's like um, if we're really here for students, we don't have time to not do something different, right? But it did. It took us a few months, at least 4 sessions, to really have people just even get on board thinking that, okay, we're we do need to start digging into at least looking at what we're doing because we're doing some things great, right? There are some things that people are doing wonderfully, but what more could we do? And we came to the realization, at least in our district, our population of students is changing, right? We're having more and more students that are coming, whether it's trauma, whether it's just not ready for school, or all these other pieces that are going on in their lives. We need to find other ways that we can support them, right? And even in our schools where we say, we have one of our elementaries, well, everybody's doing fine, with 80% of them are meeting standard, it's just all okay. But then when you look at growth, no one's growing. They're coming okay, but there they are, right? So having your staff really dig into, and it's not blaming, right? It's not that we're not doing horrible things, but what more can we do? Because we know there are some students that need something different, right? And so there's some really powerful pieces, and we'll keep talking about this because we talk about this definitely in the sequence piece of how to share out UDL, but having those pieces of there are some foundational agreements and commitments that everybody has to come to, right? And one of them is just that realization that there is variability in students that has just magnified over time, right? And if we know that to be the case, there are some different things that we have to do, right? We don't have all learners that are ready. We don't. And we also have to know that our main goal is to support students to become expert learners and advocates for themselves, not to teach math or to teach social studies. And that's hard at a high school or hard at a middle school to get teachers to embrace that part. But there are those sequences of things to have this feel more relevant and have people willing to try some of those pieces. But you're right, getting over that hump of having people being willing to be reflective, being willing to just look at their practice, that can be tough. That can be really tough. So little small steps, absolutely. Absolutely in that. Perfect. What else? What else are barriers or even like things that are working in your PD? Things that you have found that are getting people to the table and getting them to think about those collaborative conversations. What are some of those things that work for you? And they can be super silly things. Like one thing that works for our high school, they love drawings. They love little raffle drawings for the silliest things. Oh, identifying what success looks like as a group at the beginning of PD. Oh, that's perfect. Yep, thinking about your outcomes, right? What are we going for? And just like you guys said, I want concrete things that I can take away. That's what they want. They want concrete things that they can take away and try, right? The theory stuff, you got to get through that piece to kind of get them bought in, but they need to get, hey, here's something you can try tomorrow. Try this. And one of the things we told them is, hey, ask for some student feedback, even if it's just a post-it note, but ask them what worked for them today. What did they struggle with today? Right? Just starting some of those little modeling strategies and make sure you're modeling those in your PD, right? A big one for us is feedback and feedback loops, right? So use that all the time in your PD and then ask them to try that. And that was a big thing for our high school. We just asked them, ask students how things are working. Don't change a thing that you're doing, but ask them, hey, what happens in this class that really works for you and supports you? Or what's something in this class that we do that it doesn't support you, right? And just start those pieces. And we had teachers that did not want to ask for feedback. They said students are just going to be mean. I said, just give them a chance. Just see. I said, because I don't want to ask you guys for feedback either. You're going to be mean to me. but but how powerful the conversation started to become. One of our math teachers was just so great about it. She's like, okay, I'm trying it. I'm trying it. And she's like, I had no idea. Some of the things they asked for were such little asks, right? And it totally changed how they came to class. Like, hey, can we try to sit in our own seats? And she just didn't think they could handle it, but she did. And she said, okay, we'll try it and see how you guys do. Or, hey, those videos that you do, they're way too long. We need shorter videos. Perfect, I can do that. I can make shorter videos for you. And now that she's starting to do some of those things, they're giving her more feedback. They feel like they're part of things. Just that little teeny change that she did. And that actually prompted her to even do more and more. So little things like that, trying to get people bought in. But take a look. If you haven't looked at this one at all, please, this is a really great resource in looking at barriers and looking at PD through a UDL lens. This one is super powerful. All right. I am going to go back to our slides here. So if you turned off the sound and everything, come back. Hopefully, I think pretty much everybody was with us the whole time. All right, so that was definitely a resource I wanted to make sure you guys looked at. And we are right here. Perfect. I also want to make sure we have a chance for people to share out goals that they've been considering. And it can be like a super small goal, like I just want to have one PD session or whatever it is. And you might have like long-term goals for yourself for PD or things that you want to try. But let's take a few minutes and I'm going to call. Remember, you can pass if you want, but I want to hear what are your goals and if you have any like main barriers that you're anticipating with your PD, but we'll go around and see. And we'll start with Mary Jo. Mary Jo, share with us, what are your goals?
Well, I wasn't here last week, so I'm still trying to
Oh, it's all good. It's all
but
good.
it's okay. But so I'm taking, first of all, I'm taking the class because I really I took a UDL class with you guys, I think a couple of years ago. It was fabulous. And I'm using that book
Yay!
with teachers. And so I want to learn more and I want to be able, and especially with the inclusion model, I'm a resource teacher, third, fourth. Um, but I'm trying to support teachers with small group. I'm using a program that I really like, and I'm seeing a lot of growth with in foundational reading skills. And I want to do a PD for teachers who would like to attend on this program, as well as parents. And it is about teaching reading. And so that is my goal, is to empower parents so that they can work with their kids at home, but also to work with the upper grade teachers who have kids that are significantly, well, not significantly, but in their classrooms when they're doing small group and they're not going out to resource or title groups. How can they help those kids that are in the yellow and dibbles? So those are two of my goals, just kind of jumping in and thinking, why am I here and what I hope to get out? But yeah.
That is amazing. And I love that you're doing teachers and parents. No, that's perfect. Perfect. Excellent. All right, Michelle. Michelle S. I always forget we have two Michelles.
Hi, you know what? I get inspired by other people's ideas, so I'm going to pass for now, but maybe come back to me in the end.
Perfect. All right. Michelle W.
I have a goal of including UDL in all PD sessions, and whether that is in a meeting or true PD, I look at any type of opportunity to present as a professional development opportunity. So how can I provide access to everyone? More tangible goal is that we're onboarding a new student information system, and staff in general are going to be overwhelmed because everything is different. So as we train them on the separate modules that my team's in charge of, how can the professional development help alleviate that stress, acknowledge that stress does exist, but we're in it together?
Oh, it's brilliant. Yes. Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. Of if you can recognize that any chance you have to work with staff is a chance to model UDL, amazing. And think, and just like you said, any any meeting or sharing resources, emails, any opportunities to communicate, any ways that you can think about um, eliminating barriers and providing access for people is huge. So with your training for the new student information system, it's going to be so powerful for you to model um, access to materials, access to support, different entry points for people. And because it's adult learners, you can even call out, hey, I'm going to use this inclusive strategy, right? Um, because I know this is just great for all learners. And you don't even have to say things like, gosh, I wish you would use this in your room, right? But just calling out this is a great strategy we know for learners, or gosh, I'm gonna do pre and post feedback with you because I want to make sure these sessions really meet your needs. And we just know this is a great strategy for all learners, right? Just doing that little side note for your adult learners is so powerful. And then making sure if you do the feedback saying, hey, gosh, based on your feedback, we're going to do this time. We're going to do small groups because the big group was just too much for everyone. So this is what we're going to do based on a change. But gosh, in feedback again today, let me know. Did this really work? Do we need a pivot? Do some people still want a big group because we can do a small group over here, right? But that is perfect, Michelle. That's excellent. Julie,
Um, Hi. So,
hi.
like Michelle W., I'm trying to really make sure I am incorporating UDL as a way to model. And one of the tricky things, or one of my goals, I have an upcoming PD. And it's like all of our classrooms where people are coming in with just a real wide variety of background knowledge. We're learning about a particular diagnosis that kids might have, or and so they're going to be people who've never heard of it at all to people who've studied it in like a very serious way. And so I'm right now working on that with the goal of really just UDL left and right in terms of lots of different ways to explore, like spending time. Like I want everybody to know certain information, but making sure that beyond that common, like, okay, these things everybody just needs to know, then really allowing that time to explore those resources in different ways and doing something to read or listen to or watch, and then doing a share out and just kind of modeling that that piece. And I also love, and when was noticing a real barrier to something Michelle S. and I have in our little district is sometimes I think it is so important to explain where like this moment in time is in the scope and sequence of kind of what we're focusing on. However, right now we don't always have that thread of like where we're going, because we're still a little bit in the, hey, let's do a session on this as kind of a one-off. So it's helping me know that that's something we can. I have a goal of maybe trying to get more of that clarity for me, for the pieces that I'm, that are in my control. But at that, I think that was a really, I think we have to combat that perception of, like you said, flavor of the week.
No, that's perfect, Julie. And I love um, you're always going to have different levels of learners coming into your session. But like you said, if you can figure out hey, here are the goals. Everybody needs to come away with these 4 learnings, right? Some of you might already know all of these, but you're going to get a chance to dig deeper. Some of you maybe you've never heard of them. So let's make sure you have the resources so you can get those 4, right? But being super clear on the goals and then recognizing the expertise in the room, that's huge with adult learners, right? And then, like you said, honoring where everybody is in those different spaces. And a big thing with UDL is making sure you give them a chance to think about their prior knowledge. So is there like a question they can consider? Is there an experience they can think about? Is there a student maybe that comes to mind? And have everybody have that. Let me get my brain in a space where I know I'm bringing something to the table. Even if I feel like I'm not, I am bringing something, right? And so is it just an experience with a student with special needs, right? Or something. But those prior knowledge questions can be super grounding for everyone. And then coming up with, like you said, like, are you going to have stations where, hey, gosh, if you feel like you're kind of a level 1 and you want to explore this one, here's a really directed, I've got a scaffold for you to fill out some questions. I've got a video. If you're ready to more explore these other pieces, I've got 3 different readings, right? And you get to dig deeper, but giving people those chances um, to really honor what they know and where they are coming. But like you said, being really clear on you're going to come away with these 2 big understandings. And we're going to have a big discussion at the end. So we all leave with clarity around this is what we understand about these. But you're right, too, when you brought up making those connections. And even if it feels like flavor of the month, making sure you're tying it back to, gosh, we're learning about this diagnosis right now, but it's helping us with student variability. All right. And we might be learning about these different ones, but they all come under this umbrella of building our toolkit around understanding about variability, right? So there's sometimes, and being super intentional about what that connection is. And then I've even like helped some teachers that actually need to see a flow chart, right? Of our umbrella is UDL and inclusion. And look at all these great pieces that we've learned underneath, right? But that was wonderful. Kyla.
Well, not to be a copycat, but kind of the same thing. I think one of the most powerful things from PD is through modeling and showing teachers that like these are the strategies that help. And most of them are doing some of it, right? Already. It's just widening their scope and having them understand, that prior connection of what we are teaching is UDL, but like structuring it in a different way.
I love that one. And you're right. There are some people that, and we did this with some of our middle school teachers where we were just looking at engagement and the pieces of ways to engage your students. And we just asked them, gosh, highlight the ones you feel super comfortable with. Where do you kind of feel like, gosh, I got this one dialed in? Like I make a most amazing climate, right? Students feel welcomed when they come in, and having them kind of, really toot their own horn about the things that they do well. And when we did that with our teachers, it was like, oh, yeah, I do these, but I've never even considered this one. What would this look like, right? Or, gosh, I did that when I was a brand new teacher, and I don't know why I stopped doing that. I need to start doing that again, right? But you're right. There are a lot of pieces that people do and sometimes they don't even realize it's like on the UDL framework or whatever it is, right? Because it's UDL is just a great way to look at the strategies that we do and see if they hold up, right? See if it's working for the students that we have. See if it's, even if I think it's a tried and true thing, maybe it's not a great move with this group, right? Why did I actually pick that strategy? But you're right. I'm so glad so many of you are thinking about that modeling piece, because our teachers really need to experience it as a learner themselves, right? And when they start feeling that, it's like, oh, because with our first few sessions with our teachers, it was like, what does it look like? Show me the list. What is that? What are those two things I'm doing in my room, right? Just give me a list, Dabs. I'll do it. I'm like, well, that's not what it is. I mean, there's some of my favorite strategies, right? But it's not just that do these three things off a checklist. And so having them kind of see some routines, seeing how that feels. You're so right. Modeling that in every experience is super powerful. Perfect. Josh.
Excuse me. My goal is to learn about what UDL is. And the
Awesome.
barriers I anticipate are not knowing what a lot of you are talking about.
It's it it I remember when I first started hearing all the acronyms and I'm like, so what is this even, right? What is this even about? And so the UDL framework really is, it's not like it's like a list of strategies, really. It's more of, if I'm thinking about my students and my learners, I'm making sure that the first thing I'm doing is making sure I'm engaging them, right? If they're not engaged and ready for learning, just go ahead and stop, right? So I love how the UDL framework starts with engagement. And it actually was written backwards. If you have seen the UDL long enough ago, engagement was at the end, and they actually flipped it to the beginning, knowing how important that piece is. So Josh, the idea of thinking about why our students aren't engaged and different things we can do to engage them. And then, so there's a whole section on just how do you engage students and how do you engage diverse learners. And then there's a whole second section on just, it's called representation, but it's all about how to deliver content in a way that is accessible. And then the third one is all about how do I let them show me what they know in various ways, right? So the idea of thinking of every lesson and every opportunity for students to learn or adults to learn in a way that everyone can reach the goal, right? No matter what their ability level is that they're coming in, I'm making sure that I'm providing options for engagement in a way that lifts every learner. I'm providing content in a way that lifts every learner, and I'm letting them show me what they know in a lot of different ways. And the thing I love, your math, right? The thing I love about math is my math folks right away will say, hey, well, I'm a process teacher. I teach process standards. There's not much flexibility that I can do there because everybody at the end of the day has to just answer this problem, right? And this is what they do. So the thing I love is that when you dig into UDL, there are two types of standards. There's content, which is all of our social studies, and right, and there's a lot of content in science and those other pieces. But our process people, which are a lot of our ELA people, have process, and our math is like all process. So once you identify that you're process, it's not that you're offering as much choice. It's math is all about offering scaffolding, right? And what's the appropriate scaffolding for process standards? And so our math high school teachers just really wrapped themselves around how am I providing opportunities for students to learn the proper steps? How am I breaking down problems? Am I giving them enough scaffolds where the problem is halfway done and they're finishing it? Or they're only doing step one, right? And we're slowly stair-stepping things. What barrier are they sharing with me that, gosh, I'm going too fast, or they want a video of the steps to look at later, right? So really figuring out what are those scaffolds that are going to support students in those process classes. And I have three math teachers on our PD team, and getting them in a space where they felt really comfortable, that was super powerful. Because some of my social studies folks, it's like, oh, I'm offering more choices and different field studies for them to examine, right? They're getting different opportunities to either read or watch a video or do these other things. That is a different kind of layer of UDL with that choice. So yes, math um, is all about that scaffolding piece, right? And just thinking how you break down those skills for students. Yeah. So yes, I'm so glad you're back with us. But you're right. Our content people, it can be really tough to understand and embrace what UDL is because my content is important. And I have only so many weeks to get my content to you. Right. So yes, I have some great stuff for math that I'm going to make sure you have access to. But it's thinking about, and I know a lot of our math folks, when they meet, they'll think about what are the typical barriers to this geometry skill that we're doing, right? What do students usually mess up on? What are those pieces? It's vocab a lot of times too, right? So how are those pieces where I can support them? Because math is almost like learning a different language, right? So finding out those barriers and finding that scaffolding to support them. That's so hopefully just keep listening, keep sticking with us. But super exciting. I love that when people start getting excited about UDL, right? What they how our high school teachers are speaking differently about instruction is really interesting to me. It was, oh, the students just aren't, they just don't care. I'm sharing all this stuff with them and they just don't care. I don't know what to do. Now it's, oh my gosh, I'm going to try this. And I'm noticing that the students are responding to this now, and it's not student blaming, it's what they are doing now. So it's really interesting. All right, I think we got everybody had a chance. Do we want to come back to Michelle? Michelle S., did you have any? Okay, perfect. So thanks so much for sharing those goals. What I want to move to is the next part. So having those ideas of those goals are super important, right? Um, and for every session that you do, making sure, and I know, sorry, I was just looking through my notes. Um, I know that it's really important for us before we do a PD session, make sure you have your goals really clarified for everybody, right? Whatever that takeaway or that outcome is, you want to make sure you're super clear. And then, of course, having long-term goals of, gosh, this year I'm going to make sure we have, in every single session, I'm going to model, and here are my routines that I'm going to really highlight. Make sure you have those goals really clear for yourself. But the next part in the playbook that I want you to look at is this part on when and how PD can happen. And this starts on page number 10. And of course, thinking about your goals of how many sessions can you do? What are some barriers to getting PD for people? There's a prior knowledge activity in here. So some of our goals about PD, and I don't know if this is the same for your district, but in our district, it is super hard to get time with people. Is that the same for you guys? And we know it's because it's so expensive, right? Pulling people, now having optional that time that people can go to, that's really tough. And people are professionals, right? Asking them to come times beyond the school day. And I know there's also union things that will come up, right? We want to treat people as professionals. So actually getting time with people is super tough. So we have to be as creative as possible. And and also remembering any time you get, whether you're sending out a message or creating content for people, any ways that you can create them as UDL as possible and accessible for everyone as possible. Um, and then, like we've said, you guys hit it right on that plan of modeling UDL. In your professional learning and trying to get leadership around this too. So getting your principals when they're doing their even their like quick staff meetings, if they can put some of those strategies in their staff meetings, any chances that you have bringing people together, modeling UDL as much as you can. And I love that you brought up um, Michelle W. bringing up that you've got that student information system that you're bringing up, right? That knowing the PD that you get to do around other things, how can you make it accessible? How can you bring all those UDL things in there in any session that you're doing? It's going to be super important. And then just thinking about the organization and structure that can go along with your professional learning, because one of the pieces that came up with our staff is that, gosh, we do these sessions, but then how do I get to, how can I come back and learn some more? Or where is that information kept? How can I get access to it again? Those are really important pieces for people to look at. And then as always, thinking about what are the barriers. Is it lack of time? Can you be more creative with time with people? Is it just gathering any possibilities of working with people, getting those UDL strategies in there? So those are the goals of this stage of the playbook. And so what I want you to think about is, and this is a little prior knowledge is another big UDL strategy, right? Getting everybody's brain thinking in that space. I want you to think about an experience that you had as a learner. Maybe it was PD you had as an adult. Maybe it was something you actually had as a child in class. But think of some learning experience that you had where you were fully engaged. The learning was super powerful for you. It resonated. What was it about that experience that was so engaging for you? And I'd love for people I'm going to go around and see if anyone will share. If you want to put it in the chat, that's fine. But what was it about learning? What was it about that experience that you think made it so engaging for you? What do you think?
Are we just talking out? Can we just do
Yes,
that?
Michelle,
Okay.
go.
So I went to one recently and it was in Everett. And what I really liked, and this is going to sound super cheesy, but they fed us. And there was even wine and there was candy and there was prizes. And so the engagement was high. We felt like it felt like it was really celebrated that we were there. And so, unfortunately, a lot of those things cost a lot of money, and a lot of that comes out of our own pockets because of
Yes.
the, bureaucracy of dealing with the ESE and reimbursement and such. But that was, that as silly as it sounds, that was really important to me.
And that's not silly at all. Oh my gosh, with our groups that we do, um, we'll take turns. Like someone will make cookies, someone has Halloween candy, somebody has, right, and it can be not even a great snack, but it's someone has a box of granola bars they got at Costco. And the feedback everyone always says, thank you for a snack. Even if it was just a super silly thing, right? Like I've got my snickerdoodle recipe down now because I make them so much for different trainings and they love them. And I have this super cheesy, here, let me grab it real quick. I have this super cheesy tub of stickers, and you wouldn't think anyone would care about. Oh my gosh, when they share, they get to pick a sticker from the tub. And this is just Amazon, like $10, I get 200 stickers or whatever. Oh my gosh, the teachers love these stickers. I had them just for my high school kids, but the teachers loved them. Things like that, just silly little things, right? I have um, we'll have a little drawing, and I have a little box of just like a silly tub of maybe they're like weird Christmas regifts or just different little things I've collected from conferences. And there's a drawing at the beginning. They love it, right? It's just, oh, you just made it a warm, or we have music playing as people come in, right? Just making it a warm space. We've even asked some of our staff, hey, do you guys want to bring snacks too, right? And so it'll be almost like a potlucky kind of, right? But you're right, it's not cheesy at all, Michelle. Food and just different little things you would think are silly. People just feel so like, oh, you thought about me. Yes, that is super powerful. It is super powerful. What else? What else have people noticed in sessions that just like brought you in, made you feel engaged? Choice when it's time to process. Yes. Some people love to listen to things. Some people just want to write in their journal, giving people choice. Some people want to walk and talk with someone, right? Honoring people's different needs to digest information, super powerful. That's great for students too. What else?
We've already touched on it a little bit, but it's been pretty powerful for me in situations where it's just felt really important. Like that, like this work is going to impact students, and it's like I really care about doing this better, and the presenters really kind of connected those dots. So I was super motivated, and they treated it as such, like And so
How do you,
that setting that purpose and goal, and that was powerful for sure.
how do you think they connected the dots? What is it that they did to make that happen?
Well, sometimes they just explicitly said it, like they just I mean, and this was part of an ongoing fellowship, and it was the same group of people, and we were often coming back to the same themes, and so just specifically calling out the why it's important, why it impacts families, and getting to know each other in the group a little bit, so knowing different, just a little bit more about who we were learning with and why what we were doing mattered, and the families that it was impacting.
And that why is so powerful. If you guys seen that Simon Sinek, the video, if you haven't seen that one, you got to watch that. It's all about the why, right? And having that purpose. And it's like any goal you have, right? Because if it's like, I mean, just pick the gosh, I want to get healthier, right? I want to eat better, right? If you don't have a really solid why, boy, it's really easy to not follow that, right? It's if it's like, gosh, I want to have a longer life. I want to be healthy for grandchildren, right? If there's that solid why, there's a lot of power and energy people can give to things. But if it's kind of like, oh, well, it's just kind of trendy and gosh, I guess it's, someone told me it's probably a good idea. If you don't have that why, boy, that energy and stamina, because it takes work. It takes work to do new things, right? It's not just if it were easy, everyone would do it, right? And all of our students would be achieving and there'd be no problems at all. It's not easy. But the thing I love, there's a great I'll get the video next time, but there's a great quote from a college basketball coach, and she said, and I'll get the video, I'd love it. Um, it's not that things get easier. They won't. They're not going to get easier, but you're going to get better at doing hard things. And that just so resonates with me. And I so try to just keep that and share that with teachers of just, you will just want to be compelled to do this work because it's so compelling when you start to see small changes with your students, when they start to be a little more engaged, it's going to give you that energy. And even and sharing with your students, there's this, algebra isn't super easy all the time, but you're going to get better at doing those harder things, right? Because we're going to slowly scaffold those and give you that support and work together to make those things happen. But that why is just so powerful. Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So I'm gonna give you a few minutes. I don't know. Do you guys show me with your fingers of do you want 5 minutes? Do you actually want 10 minutes to jump into pages 10 and 11 and make some notes for yourself? How much time do you want? Let's see what people show me. You want five-ish minutes? So I want you to take 5 minutes and go ahead and turn your volume down if you like. I'm going to change my timer. I'll be here if you have a question, but I want you to take a look through those pages 10 and 11, make some notes for yourself, make some personal goals of when and how are you going to find time for PD or put these places in your figure out your modeling piece that you're going to do and make some notes on your prior knowledge activity. Is it food? Are you going to just find some goofy stickers for people? What is it that you're going to do that's going to have just that welcoming? Is it that why that you need to develop? Let's take 5 minutes and get people get a chance to write some notes and things down. And perfect. I'm going to mute myself, but you just call out or throw something in chat. Oh, yes, Carol Larson, there it is. Thank you so much for the video link. That's it. It's brilliant. All right, 5 minutes, everybody. All right, time's up. Let's come back together. And any share outs after having a chance to kind of digest and process. And again, you can do that in the chat or just let's have a couple shout outs. What do you think?
I'm happy to start.
Go ahead.
So when I think back at when we were looking at data, it was ANET data for ELA. One thing that was really helpful is that we had time to get started straight away in the process of not only examining the data, but then thinking about and talking about with our, collaborating on how it would be that we would respond to that, what we were noticing in the data, any kind of trends that we were seeing. So I thought that was really helpful because first of all, all of it was new to us. And so, in order to be able to ask questions rather than just sending people away with, okay, this is your homework assignment, go off and do this. And then when they come back, it's like nobody's done it because they didn't have time to get it started. So, I think that getting it started in the session is really important in order to, compel teachers to continue the work. And as everyone else mentioned, the why, understanding why we're doing this and why it's important in order to keep everyone hooked in and keep doing the work.
Absolutely. And one of those pieces with when you're doing like a data dig or a data dive, sometimes that can be there can be so much to it. Some people really want to see those charts ahead of time. So for some of your PD, is there a way to like share out your slides ahead of time, right? Share out some of the questions you're going to ask. Give some people, and some people won't look at all. It's fine. But for those few that, gosh, they really need that preload, and we know there's some students that are really like that too, right? If you could preload some vocab, if you can give them a chance to see things ahead of time, that can be super powerful. And then, like you said, Michelle, if it's important work, I'm going to give you time to start here. And then maybe even give you some time when we come back. Let's get back into the stuff that you looked at. Let's give you a little chance to regroup and get back in that. If you didn't have a chance to work on it on your own, let's take a few minutes right at the beginning, right, for you to get a chance to dig into some of those pieces. That's going to be super powerful. No, that's nice. And then finding out from your learners and from your staff, gosh, I'm going to have the slides up on our website, right? If you want to go to it, I'll remind you that it's there. Just want to make sure you have access to it before and after. That can be super powerful. Anybody else? Okay. I do want to dig into the next piece. So we are stopping with stage 2 for goals and prior knowledge. In our next session, we're going to be jumping into these next pieces. So if you look at like page 12, let's see, what page are we on here? Let me go down. So we've looked at that stage 2 where you looked at some personal goals and that prior knowledge activity. A big piece that we're going to do in our next session is looking at some of the resources that are in here that can really support you on the when and the how. And then if you want to look ahead at some of these and some of the organizational structures, take a peek at those. But in the next session, we're going to really be digging into that piece and thinking about how some of those resources can support you. But what I want to jump to right now for our last part is in our feedback, 2 of you said, gosh, because we spent time, I don't know if you remember in our first session, those of you who are here, we just went around and people just brought up their questions and what they were hoping we were going to talk about during this session. And so I wrote them all down, and in the feedback, people said, well, are you going to use our questions for anything? Because I'm just kind of curious. So what I did is I actually did this for our high school staff because it's kind of funny. They said the same thing. At the end of all of our feedback, we said, oh, thanks so much, Adam, for throwing that in there. At the end of our feedback, we always asked, do you have any other questions about UDL right now? And so we got lots of questions, but we never really had a session where we just talked about questions. And so then we actually created this resource document where we collected all their questions and we spent sessions just going through the questions that they had. And we had them find their own question. We had them look at resources. So I'll show you at the very end of this doc. I know it's 9 pages long. I apologize, it's super long. But what I did is I kept starting on page number 4, I kept all the questions that came from our staff. So you could see what they asked. But at the beginning of this doc, I just put all your questions in. And let me make this larger. I have very poor eyesight. I want to make sure we can all look at it together. But Adam shared out the link with you, and this is on our website resource. But I collected your questions and I put a short response, but then guided you to a resource. And what I want you to do in our feedback, again, give me more questions, but I want to go through some of these with you because you guys asked really powerful questions. So the one thing that I just started with a recommendation is that if you do anything at all in your PD, use feedback loops. If you change nothing at all as a teacher, or with your ask your teachers to change anything, have them do this. It is such a low lift. It is such a big return. I cannot even tell you. And like I said, even if you're doing like a thumbs up, thumbs down discussion in class, if you're doing students giving you happy faces and sad faces, if you're doing Google Forms, whatever it is that you're doing, figure out a way to ask your learners, your teachers, and your students for feedback. How is the learning supporting them? Because the learning is for them. I cannot stress this enough. This is like my soapbox that I will die on. I have a resource here for you that's all about routines that you should be using in your professional learning. And I'm going to scroll down in here because there's a bunch of stuff in here, and we'll look at this. This is actually one of the resources we'll look at next week too. But one of the big things in here is feedback loops and how powerful. There's an article in here that I wrote for Edutopia on it, if you're curious. There's also a resource in here just on feedback, but oh my gosh, it is so important for us to ask our learners how the learning is working for them. And like I said before, sorry, I'm figuring my tabs. Like I said before, we just had our high school teachers start with just that. Just having that discussion and having learners start to talk about what they were hoping or what they wanted you to keep doing or what they wanted you to stop doing. And also students aren't great with giving feedback. They have to learn how to do that. So expect some like interesting responses, right? But super powerful. So take a look at that one. Then there was a question that came up from you about how can we effectively model UDL and provide practical strategies, takeaways for teachers. So I think it's the same link. It's this one just all about how to actually, which strategies to actually do in your PD. So there's a little piece at the beginning, but getting started, right? Review your professional learning, talks about your goals, have you think about what's really working. I have a sample agenda in here that we use for PD in my groups that you have access to. And it just starts with, it has the modeling strategy right here, but just what to consider before a session. As everyone comes in, you're greeting them. Do you have materials out? Do you have music playing? Are there snacks? Any kind of prize drawings, right? And it's making sure everyone feels welcomed. Are you always sharing your goals? And we have a strategy of how we're sharing our goals, our short-term and long-term. And here's the modeling notes. Always doing your feedback loop. So this, is there always a prior knowledge routine that you're doing? And then there's the learning activity that they're doing. And how are you making sure there's choice? What barriers have you considered? And then the what's next in feedback. So there's a quick agenda that could support you there. But in this one, I really do outline, here are the strategies that you need to use and why. And here's the gotta do's. You gotta have your firm and flexible goals. You gotta have your feedback loops. You should be doing that every single time, right? And here's the whole why and why are you doing that? And then prior knowledge, we know that's a huge one. And then choices. How are you providing choices for access? Choices, like you guys said, choices for processing. What kind of learner-centered exploration are you doing? Are you talking at them the whole time? Are they getting a chance to do things? Reflection time. So there's a whole piece just on exactly what you asked on practical strategies. Another question that came up, how can we be sure to provide support on how this looks in various subjects and various grade levels? And that's another great question. Learner variability, we need to remember, regardless of subject, regardless of grade level, that's a thing. And we're supporting our students on that variability piece because it works no matter what grade level, it works no matter what subject. And I love that any teacher of anything can talk and collaborate with each other around lesson design when you talk about UDL, because it doesn't matter what the content is, right? And sometimes it's nice to not have people that have similar content together, because then they're not just focused on the content, right? They're focused on the strategies of engagement. They're focused on the strategies of choices. How can we develop a why for UDL? The perfect book we used for developing why is Unlearning by Allison Posey. Have you guys heard that one? If you haven't, get that book. And we did a book study. I did a book study for Let's See on that one. And I have resources. If you actually look at our web resource, there's an Unlearning book study page that you can take a look at some of their resources. It is a great why building book if you need that. So take a look at that one. Another question, how can we make sure that staff realizes the connection between UDL and other initiatives? And this one, you might want to read this one. I talk about just our Burlington Edison story and how we pulled that off. And then I bring up that planning professional development with the UDL lens piece, but you're right, that can be a super tough one. And it really can be that you're unfolding the narrative of your district of here's where we've been. And the thing that's beautiful is now we're at this point where we've learned about UDL. We've done all this other learning. We're not going to throw it away. It's amazing learning. But now we have this amazing framework to sift all of our other learning through, right? So if we spent all this time on PSYOP or on GLAD or on trauma informed, it's all fine because it's all come together and can still be part of our toolkit. But now we have this amazing framework to run everything through, and we can have common language about all of our instructional practice, right? So that's kind of what UDL does, is it gives us this way to kind of lump and coalesce, bring all of our things together, because then if we use UDL, we can do things like, gosh, is this a great strategy to pick? Is this helping us with some of our barriers, or is this helping us with some of our pieces? It's going to help us think about what to focus on and keep focusing on. So you might want to take a peek at this one and just kind of see how we pulled some of those pieces off. Can you bring on UDL with little or no funding was one of your questions. And you can always make time for what's important. That's one of the things my grandpa always said. But there's a link here to finding time for professional learning. And I know there are some districts that they change their whole schedule. They build in this win time. They do co-teaching, right? There are a lot of things that can be done that do cost a lot of dollars, but there's also things absolutely that can be done without. And there's great ways to start and then thinking about how you're using resources. But take a look at that one. How can we support and motivate teachers that are nervous? There's this great getting started document. This actually comes from Design and Deliver. If you haven't seen that one, that's another one of my favorite books. This is a Louis Lord Nelson. We did a book study on this one too, but this one has a lot of great resources, and one of them is just about the 4 big things. And it's about how to slowly bring UDL on. So if you haven't seen that, I just pulled those ideas right from her book. And there's a flow chart scaffold. So if that question makes sense for you, dig into that one. How do we combat resistance and create true buy-in? That is such a great question. And I have some notes in here and a professional learning entry point document that I made. So if this is the barrier you want to look at, variability is a fact. It is a fact with your staff. It's a fact with your students. And some people will be less ready than other people, right? We know that's a thing. We also know, if we've done PD for a while, there are some people that you feel like you can never bring over to your side, but you still just keep going, right? And the hope is that you will compel people to want to join in, and that they will see so many other things going on with other people, that it will become, the idea is that it becomes such a norm in your system that they would be such an outlier that they'd want to join in, right? And then also finding ways that you are bringing people in and finding out because for me, I always have to believe that everyone always wants to do better. They always want to try, but what's that support layer that they need, right? What is that? Is it that they do need a book? Is it they need someone sitting with them, finding out what those pieces are? But this one, this one might be the one that resonates with you right now. Taking a look at this one, there's a getting started resource. There's that one on creating professional learning and looking at the barriers. So take a look at this one if this one resonates with you on those entry point pieces. Okay, so I want you to take a couple minutes and just look at this. Okay, I'm going to give you just like 3 or 4 minutes. So look at the question that makes sense for you, and then we'll do a quick share out. So just a few minutes. I know I just dumped a lot at you. I apologize. So just take a look at that. All right, let's come back together. I know that was not much time at all, but I'm curious, any initial thoughts after seeing the FAQ? Do we want to keep adding to that? Does this look like a solid resource for people? Perfect. See a lot of thumbs up. Again, a lot of these resources you're going to see peppered through the playbook, but I wanted to give you an alternative, right? Just based on your question, you can look at your question and resources that are attached there. So please, in feedback tonight, make sure if you have new questions, add those. If there are different resources or questions that you want me to even go deeper into, just let me know. And the thing that I love is that you're not the only person with that question, right? Other people will have that question, and that's going to support helping me build documents and pieces as well. Does anybody want to share anything out on that? All right. So we just have a few minutes left. And I apologize if this has been so small you can't see it this whole time. But our next session, oh my gosh, it's January 7th, right at 4 p.m. will be our next session. You'll get to have a wonderful holiday break in there. And in our next session, we're going to be looking at completing stage 2 and starting stage 3. Please, anytime, jump through, look at different resources, jump into that FAQ, email me. You guys should have my email address. So if you have questions as we're going, do you guys have my email address? I'm going to throw it in here really quickly just in case you don't. And I think it's all over. Oh, yeah, it's all over everything. Thank you, Michelle. Yes, I have it all over the bottom of that document. So yes, please email me. You don't have any homework you would have, you would make up for yourself that you want to dig into something or make notes for yourself. Anyone that's doing any PD, but before we meet again, love to hear your notes. If you try anything, if anyone tries feedback loops, love to hear from you. So from now on in any of our sessions, any PD pieces that you're trying, please let us know. I want to hear how things are going for everybody. And before you go, of course, please fill out our feedback link that I'm sure Adam's going to beat me. Oh, he already did. Yes. So there's our feedback link. Please fill that out for me. Again, this is your session. The only way this session gets any better is all up to you. So please let me know. And if you have questions, if you have more questions to add to the FAQ, I'm almost positive that I put that in there. Let's see. Yep. The very last question is if you have any more questions or topics to add to that FAQ doc. So please give me some feedback. Let me know how we can make this session really powerful for you. I know how, I mean, gosh, after a full day, it is so tough to do these sessions. So having the energy and being here and contributing, thank you so much. You're the biggest gift you can give people is your time and being present. And I just appreciate all of you coming and supporting each other. It's a thrill to get to listen to you and chat with you guys. I hope you enjoyed the session tonight. Please, if you're not home yet, I know a couple of you are. If you're not home yet, please drive safe. And I can't wait to see you next time. And again, please reach out and enjoy. Thank you so much, everyone. Great session tonight. Take care. And Adam, big shout out to Adam for all of his support. Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you.
Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Adam.
And you can go ahead and stop that recording. And let's have everyone have a fabulous night.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Tracy,
much.
can I
Take
ask
care.
you a quick question.
Absolutely, Mary Jo.